believe that every child deserves to be safe and loved. Stay with
It concerns the fundamental right of a child to be safe. This is not a televised drama. It is a documented reality. It involves a real child and a father living with an inconsolable grief. The narrative is immediately compelling. Its conclusion, profoundly tragic. It is the case of a young boy whose brief life ended in a catastrophic failure of the systems designed to protect him. Mickey Mouse was reportedly his favorite character. His father would later state he could no longer watch the cartoon. He would do anything to reverse the outcome. The boy's absence, he explained to the court, was an unbearable loss.
And this is one of the hardest stories I've ever had to tell.
This account was incredibly difficult for him to provide. An examination of the events in this case may one day provide the crucial insight needed to save another child's life. Wider dissemination of these facts is critical to public awareness. Increased awareness can directly lead to spotting warning signs and achieving timely intervention. The timeline of events begins here. On July 14, 2016, in Montgomery County, Virginia, a man named Steven Meek became a father. He named the boy Steven Dale Meek II. The experience of first holding one's child is described as transformative. The new father, Steven Sr., stood over his son, reportedly overcome with emotion. He observed the infant's tiny hands, his warmth, and unfocused eyes that seemed to search for him. This was a defining moment that reoriented his entire existence. Young Steven was raised in Christiansburg, Virginia, a small town where residents are deeply interconnected. It was a place of familiar greetings and children playing outdoors until dusk. He was remembered as a child of incredible warmth and vibrant energy. His sudden, bright laughter was known to be infectious, altering the mood of an entire room. The effect was apparently unavoidable. He developed a strong fixation on Mickey Mouse. A worn stuffed toy of the character was his constant companion. His father once briefly hid it as a joke, but quickly returned it. Certain possessions hold profound meaning for a child. He also displayed a keen interest in picture books. He would methodically inspect each page, pointing to any image that captured his interest. Only then would he look to a nearby adult, as if silently requesting an explanation. When read to, he would become completely still, listening with a focus unusual for a 2-year-old. His father read to him each night before bed. It was their quiet, personal ritual. The father and son were, by all accounts, inseparable. During morning walks, the boy would stop at every puddle, studying his reflection with deep concentration. Weekend mornings were for watching cartoons. His plush toy often propped up beside them small, ordinary moments. These moments, however, were profoundly significant. Steven Sr. documented these times, often reviewing photographs at night, contemplating the man his son would become. His family's nickname for him was Lil Bit. His maternal grandfather, with whom he was exceptionally close, devoted nearly all his free time to the boy. Steven II had a natural ability to improve the spirits of those around him simply by his presence. The boy's parents, Steven Meek Sr. and Kayla Thomas, were separated. They operated under a shared custody agreement. Consequently, Steven divided his time between his mother and father. The arrangement seemed to provide a stable, loving world. He was surrounded by a network of care. He was protected until he was not. The resources for this investigation are supported by public engagement. If this case resonates, your subscription and support indicate a need for this work. It confirms that these stories must be told.
There are a lot more coming.
Further investigations are underway. Any one of them could be the one that makes a critical difference. In 2018, a 25-year-old man named McKenzie Helman entered Kayla Thomas's world. He took up residence at her 430 Zinc Lane mobile home, a quiet address minutes from the police. Helman brought his own young son into the picture. Now, 2 small children shared the same space. On the surface, no warning signs were visible. It was a common story, a new boyfriend, a new presence in the home, entirely unremarkable. The children were rarely seen outdoors, a detail neighbors filed away as insignificant. The home was silent, no fights, no police calls. One neighbor was unaware a child even lived there. Legally, the custody agreement between Kayla and Steven Sr. remained unchanged. In reality, a slow, imperceptible shift was occurring. The boy's visits to his father dwindled. His world was increasingly confined to a house with a near stranger. The father's check-ins were met with hollow assurances, yet a deep-seated instinct told him something was wrong. Some dangers are silent. They leave no visible traces for the outside world to see. They trigger no alarms, raise no flags within the system. It thrives behind closed doors. beyond the reach of authorities until a call is made. Official records on Helman and Thomas were blank. No neighbor calls, no agency referrals, nothing. To the system designed to protect, the family was invisible. Steven's presence in the outside world began to fade. The once boundless, curious child was receding, becoming quiet and withdrawn. This transformation was so subtle, even those closest to him could not pinpoint its origin, the specific moment it all began. The boy's father would later recall a persistent feeling of unease, missing their scheduled weekends. He missed the simple act of playing on the floor with his son, missed hearing him talk. The child who once ran to greet him was now a different boy. He was tense, perpetually braced for an impact his father couldn't yet see. The reality of what was happening inside the Zinc Lane house would eventually render even seasoned investigators speechless. The day it ended began like any other. Kayla Thomas left for her shift at a Roanoke Street deli. McKenzie Helman remained behind with 2 toddlers, Steven and his own son, both around 2 years old. At 8:35 that evening, a text exchange began between Helman and Kayla about the night. She made a passing comment that went unnoticed. Steven was acting strange lately, that he seemed off. After a brief reply, Helman called her at 9:05. At 9:13, he dialed 911. The first officer on scene, Aaron Lusk, found Helman on the living room floor. Beside him lay the small, motionless body of the child. First responders worked on the boy for 25 minutes before he was stable enough for transport. Helman offered an explanation: a fall. He claimed he heard a thud and found Steven on the bedroom floor. He suggested the boy fell from the bed. Officers measured its height. It stood just 13 inches off the ground. Steven was transported to Lewis Gale Hospital, then airlifted to Carilion Roanoke Memorial Hospital. Despite extensive medical intervention, 2 days later, on January 13, 2019, at 7:40 in the evening, Steven Dale Meek II died. He was 2.5 years old. Upon receiving the call, his father's world stopped. This was the boy he read to nightly, the child whose ordinary moments he had chronicled, the life he had pledged to protect. He was gone, a fact that no force on earth could reverse. Christian's detectives had already begun their investigation that same night, long before the final outcome was known. Helman's story about the fall did not hold up, model. The medical examiner, Dr. Amy Tharp, later testified with grim clarity. The boy's injuries were not consistent with a fall from a 13-inch bed. A fall of that height, she asserted, would not be lethal. Otherwise, no one would survive childhood. Investigators extracted data from both Helman's and Kayla Thomas's phones, uncovering a reality that chilled even seasoned detectives. Sifting through messages, images, and videos, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. It was a portrait of something far darker than could be described as mere neglect or abuse. The evidence revealed that Helman had established absolute control over the household from the beginning. He dominated Kayla and the child through threats and manipulation, reducing her to a state of profound fear. On the stand, she described a life of constant terror for herself, her unborn child, and for Steven. It was under this intense duress that she committed an act the court later defined as a serious felony. 3 days before Steven's death, private messages showed Helman pressuring Kayla into an act devoid of any justification. Her own phone held the digital evidence of his coercion. He sent these messages from the other end of the same small mobile home. Steven was failed by the 2 people meant to be his protectors. When Kayla went to work on January 11th, leaving Helman alone, the final sequence of events was already in motion, its outcome inexorable. Helman was taken into custody on January 13th, facing multiple serious felony charges. Kayla Thomas was arrested on January 16th. Both were denied bond. At the time, Kayla was carrying Helman's unborn child. The case became a public flashpoint, shared widely across social media and among families. The story's reach amplified calls for recognizing warning signs before a tragedy could unfold. The legal proceedings would stretch on for nearly 2 years. For 2 years, Steven's father awaited a courtroom verdict to deliver some measure of justice. In March of 2021, a jury convened for Helman's case. The charges stemmed from the damning evidence found on his own digital devices. After just over 30 minutes of deliberation, the jury returned with guilty verdicts on all counts, recommending 2 life terms. On July 26, 2021, Helman faced the court and pleaded guilty to the remaining charges. His responses to the judge's inquiries were clipped, monosyllabic. In August, The judge imposed the final sentence, 2 life terms plus an additional 90 years. That prison door would not open. Next, the court turned to Kayla Thomas. Her attorney did not dispute the facts of her actions. The defense's argument focused on motive, that she acted under coercion, fearing for her life and that of her unborn baby. The jury considered all evidence, returning in exactly 1 hour with guilty verdicts on all 4 counts. She spoke of a deep, profound remorse for what had occurred. She stated she would do anything to have her son back. The jury recommended 2 life terms and 10 years. The judge formalized this sentence on September 23, 2021. Before sentencing, he noted it was among the most profoundly disturbing cases of his career. Steven's family delivered impact statements. His maternal grandmother struggled to comprehend how it all could have happened. His grandfather, the man Steven knew as Pawpaw, revealed that he thinks of his grandson every day, haunted by a single, cherished photograph. To the court, his family expressed their feelings. A declaration was made that the day represented justice for their Lil Bit baby Steven, now safe in heaven. Steven Sr. left the courthouse, knowing the verdict changed nothing fundamental. Justice had been rendered, but his son was not coming back. Many in his position would have retreated into silence, consumed by grief and just trying to survive. Instead, he continued to speak publicly, holding both his love and his sorrow in the open. He spoke of his son not merely as a tragic loss, but as a unique individual who left an indelible mark in less than 3 years on Earth. His laugh, Mickey Mouse, a life unlived. His family's collective voice helped to catalyze real change. Steven's case prompted a critical re-examination of shared custody protocols within the state of Virginia. The protocols now scrutinize how a child's safety is assessed when a new adult is introduced. It mandated new standards for communication between law enforcement and protective services. It also enforced stricter accountability for unseen dangers that show no outward signs. This could not bring the boy back, but it ensured his story would not conclude in silence. The protection of other children became the only form of justice left to be found. Steven Dale Meek II was born on July 14, 2016. He favored cartoons and books. His life was defined by morning walks, bedtime stories, and an innate, unprompted generosity to others. He was meant to have a future. A full life was the baseline expectation. The rites of passage, school, friendships, family were all supposed to follow in sequence. That sequence was irrevocably broken. But within these events lies a clear responsibility for any outside observer. When a child withdraws or exhibits anxiety or a fear of home, it is not a phase. It is a signal that any observer, a teacher, a neighbor, a relative, is positioned to report. An instinct that something is wrong warrants a call to the authorities or a child protection hotline. To be mistaken is a manageable outcome. The consequence of inaction is often not. Silence carries a psychological weight that can become its own unbearable sentence. He is remembered as the boy with the Mickey Mouse doll and the serious face bent over a book. The facts of the case are disturbing, which is precisely why they must be examined. The discomfort in confronting such events underscores the necessity of discussing them. This case remains a permanent record of systemic and individual failures. There are other stories, other files, that have yet to be fully brought to light. For the vulnerable, the vigilance of others is the final line of defense. The story of Lil Bit Steven is not just a chronicle of loss. It is a profound, heart-shattering reminder that for the most vulnerable among us, our vigilance is their only shield. Behind closed doors, danger doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it is found in the sudden withdrawal of a once vibrant child, the haunted stillness in a toddler's eyes, or the unexplained tension of a home that has grown too quiet. We often tell ourselves it is not our business or a private family matter, but silence in the face of suspicion is a luxury a child cannot afford. Justice is a closed prison door, but protection is an open eye. We must honor Steven's memory by reclaiming our collective responsibility. If an instinct tells you a child is fading, if a shadow seems too heavy, or if a new presence in a home feels off-speed, to be mistaken is a moment of discomfort. To stay silent can be a lifetime of regret. Let us transform our grief into a fierce, unwavering watchfulness. Let Steven's favorite character, Mickey Mouse, no longer be a symbol of stolen joy, but a reminder to protect the magic of every childhood. Because for every child like Steven, your voice is not just a report. It is the final line of defense between a future and a tragedy.